Welcome back. Till now, we learned how to grant system privileges. But also, in the intro lesson, we mentioned that we can grant them on the objects. And in this example, this is just exactly what we're gonna show. So for the test purposes, we're gonna create two users, one badger, and we're gonna add him basic privileges to connect to database, create a table, and to insert some data, right? And we're gonna create another user named Wombat with the same grants, right? Now notice that I'm doing multiple grants at once, only with one statement. So my permissions are divided by the comma, and I can add any number of privileges to that statement. Okay, so this is a valid statement. So now let's connect with our newly created users. And the second one. Now with my Wombat user, I'm gonna create a table, just named sample1, with one column, and I'm gonna insert one row to it, like that. We can also commit that, and let's check the state of that table. So the data is present. If we try to access that data from other user, that will not be possible. So if I try to select from the table, notice that I'm using a schema prefix. And not only that I do not have permissions to query from that table, the actual database engine shows as this table does not exist, but we know it is created. So from the owner user, we have to grant permissions on that object. And the syntax for that is as following. So from my Wombat user, which is the owner of that table, we are granting select and the update privilege on the object name to and the username we are granting that privilege. Okay, we could also be using an option, and similar as we learned with the admin option, with objects it is with grant option. So this grants our user badger to further on grant privileges on a particular object. Okay, so let's execute that grant, and again from other user, our badger, which now has a privilege to select or update our table, we're gonna try to query it from it. And now we can see the results over here. Of course, we can also revoke those grants with the following syntax. So the syntax is revoke, which privilege we want to revoke, on which database object, and from which user. And the same as with the admin option, we do not have to use with grant option. So let's revoke those privileges from our badger user on the sample1 table. And now if we try to query from that table from the badger user, again, this will be not possible, as we can see. The same as we learned before, we can also grant all privileges. And that will be with quite similar syntax. So grant all privileges on which object to which user. Right? Our grant is successful, and once again, we'll be able to query from that table from our badger user, and even we could now insert the data to it as we added all privileges to that user. Of course, we can revoke them. So revoke all privileges on which object and from which user. And again, our badger user won't be able to access that table. Very nice. And again, we can also grant a privilege on an object to the public user account. So the syntax would be the same as with particular user, just to the public. Right? As our badger user is a valid user on the database, he'll be again able to access that table, right? Once again, he can access that data. One important thing to have in mind, especially for the exam, if a table is dropped and then recreated, we have to again grant privileges to particular users or to the public user account. So all of the grants will be gone, unless we use the flashback operation. In this case, grants are also recreated. Be sure to practice this out, as this will definitely come up on the exam. This is it for this one, and see you in the next one.